so glad that you guys are here. And I'm just excited to be back with you. I was gone last weekend. Actually, I was in Arkansas. Trish and I were in Arkansas last weekend. We spoke at a church there that actually helped with our adoption 2 years ago. And so they had contributed to our adoption fund and in exchange for us coming and doing a marriage event for them last Sunday. And so we were there Saturday, Sunday. Did a marriage event Sunday evening, and then spoke to their staff Monday morning, and then flew back. And so I've been pumped to be back with you. And if you were not here last week, P.D. Kinder from Traders Point did an unbelievable job continuing our Hope Forever series. I got some text messages and had some conversations like, hey, you know P.D., he's on staff at Traders Point. Like it was the Death Star. I'm like, yes, I know he's on staff at Traders Point. One of the things we say around here all the time is we're for the church, not just Hope City. We're for every church, right? It takes every single church. There's 1.4 million people in our city that are not connected to a church. And so we need more churches, and we need more churches that love other churches. And so if Hope City is not the place for you, I want to help you find a place. Genesis is an awesome church. Northview is an awesome church. Traders Point is an amazing church. And your faith journey is more important than your church attendance here. Okay, and so if this isn't a place that you can connect, Mercy Road's an amazing church. And so I want to help be a conduit for you to fall in love with the local church and get invested in the local church and be a part of the local church, because life change takes place as we do life together in faith communities. And so that's our heart. And so I'm grateful for Petey being here last week. And if you weren't here, I'd go back and take a look at the message, because it was really good. One of the things we say around here all the time is Hope City is a place where you can belong before you believe. And that just really means that no matter where you are in your faith, you're welcome here. And we have people that have been in church their entire life that come to church here. We have people that have come to church for the first time in their life that have attended church here. And so we want to be a community that welcomes everybody. And for some of you that have been here for a while, you came in last Sunday. If you're a guest, hope that you feel welcome. You would not know this, but for people who have come here for a while, since we've been in this building, you came in last Sunday, you're like, what did they do with the chairs? Oh my gosh, my seat is gone. I've had the same seat for 2 years. What is going on, right? And some of you are freaking out. I know from your emails, all right? I know from your text messages. And here's the deal. We're moving around the chairs. This room is not treated acoustically. We didn't have the resources to treat it when we moved in. And so we're playing with the sound. We're trying to improve the experience. We're trying to do everything that we can to help you have a great worship experience. And so we may move the chairs again next week. And so just brace yourself, okay? So if you've been coming for a while, like, oh my gosh, I cannot take change. I'll email you ahead of time. No, I won't, but I just want you to know I appreciate some of your feedback. Like, wow, the room looks a lot different. It does, all right? And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. But we are continuing our series today called Hope Forever. We kicked this off on Easter Sunday. And, one of the things that I really wanted to do as we launched this series is just talk about where we place our hope. Because I think all of us place our hope in something. All of us place our hope somewhere. And I wrestled with this message this week because it's a continuation, really, of the Easter story. And so as I was preparing, I thought to myself, as a pastor, it's really hard on Easter and Christmas because you already know the ending, right? On the other 50 weeks of the year, we kind of have a competitive advantage because you don't really know where we're going. But Easter and Christmas, you have the competitive advantage because you've heard it before, and it's like, oh man, okay, this better be fresh, but it's the same story. And as I was reading the Easter story this year, I really felt like God was leading me to share what I'm going to share with you today as kind of a continuation of Easter. It's found in Luke chapter 24, where Jesus resurrected from the dead, and really discussing and really doing an inventory of where we place our hope. Because all of us place our hope in something. All of us place our hope somewhere. And so that's the question. Where do you place your hope? For some of you, you place your hope, or you have placed your hope in education. And for Kyle Ward, this is really hard because this is an Indiana University diploma, and he's a diehard Purdue fan. But that's my wife's diploma. And some of us place our hope in education. You had this hope when you were in high school, if I could just get that degree, if I could just graduate from college, if I could just get that MBA, if I could just get that master's degree, if I could just get my doctorate. And for some of us, we have placed all of our hope in our education. We thought, okay, once I achieve that, once I get this, then I'll feel fulfilled. Then I'll feel joyful. Then I'll feel hopeful about my life. I was the first person in my family to go to college. First person in my family to graduate from college. Actually, my mom started college about a semester after I did, and then we graduated a day apart from one another. And so she got pregnant with me in high school and obviously she couldn't go to college, and started going to college after I did, and then we graduated a day apart, which just means she's a much higher achiever than me, because she did college as a mom of four kids, I took a long time to get through. But anyway, we have this hope, right, that if I can just get my education, just get my student loans, then I'll feel hopeful, right? And for some of us, we've got the degree, and we've gone through the schooling, and this didn't really do it for us. Maybe for some of us, it's Mr. Right. If I can just find Mr. Right, if I can just find Mrs. Right, if I can just find a relationship that will help me feel secure, help me feel fulfilled, if I can just, if I can just find somebody that wants me, somebody that desires me, somebody that will swipe right for me, somebody that will choose me. Maybe hit a little close to home to some of you. If I could just find somebody that will fulfill me, then I will have hope for my life, hope for my future. And you have thought that your mission in adult life is to find the right person. And so you've made that your goal. You have attached your hope to that ideal. And you thought you found the right person. And then you got into a relationship with that person, and you realized that they weren't the right person. And so you thought, man, I thought they were the right person, but they're actually the wrong person. And now you've been through person number 2 or 3 or 4 that you thought was the right person. And you're starting to feel hopeless. Maybe for some of you, it's you put your hope in, not a female piggy bank, but just in resources, in money, and how much you can accumulate. And what you have thought is, if I could achieve financial security, then I'll have hope for my life. If I could just work hard, if I could use my degree, and if I could actually just save up some money, if I could get out of debt, if I could just buy that house, if I could just, have the financial resources that my parents did not have, if I could actually feel like I was secure, then I would start feeling hopeful. But if you've been around for, the last 10 years, you know that stock markets go up. And all stock markets also go down, right? Real estate markets go up and real estate markets crash. It's super hot right now, but 2009, it was not super hot, right? And so there's this realization that there's nothing wrong with money, but if you're placing all of your hope in your financial resource, if you're placing all of your hope in your financial security, you know that it's temporal. Right? It can come and go. You could lose the job that is providing for you. You could lose the resources that you have right now. It's not guaranteed. But for many of us, this is where we find our hope. Maybe for some of us, it's our accomplishments. It's how many awards we can win and how many deals we can close. And if I could just, get that next promotion, if I could just get that next award, if I could just get that next accomplishment, if I could just achieve that corner office, if I could just get that promotion, if I could just get my boss's attention. And so you work hard and you travel and you spend 80 hours a week at the office and you do everything that you possibly can to get attention and to get the promotion and to achieve all of the accomplishments that you think are going to bring you hope. And here's the thing about awards. They're phenomenal, right? Here's the thing about President's Club trips. They're amazing. Here's the thing about closing sales deals. It brings a euphoria and a rush. Right? And it provides for your family. But you know this, if you've done this, if you attach your hope to accomplishment and your hope is only based on your accomplishments, what happens? These are gateway drugs to the next accomplishment. It's never enough. It just feeds your need to accomplish more. If this is where your hope is attached, if this is the only place where you find your hope. These are a few of the sales awards that I got when I was an executive recruiter about 10 years ago. And I have one that's a little bit bigger than this. I didn't want to be really arrogant and bring it. But it's $1 million. It's $1 million award. I had brought $1 million into the company in 3 years. And I resigned to go back into ministry. And you know what happened to these awards? They were packed up in a box by a security guard in 15 minutes of resigning. No matter how valuable I thought I was to the company, no matter how amazing I thought my corner office was and how indispensable I felt, as soon as I said I was done, you know what they were? Done. Right? And so if I had all of my hope attached in these, my life and my identity would have crumbled. Right? But some of us, this is where we find our hope. We think, okay, if I can just accomplish this, if I can just achieve that, then I'll feel hopeful. Maybe for some of us, it's not just our love life, but maybe it's this idea of marriage. And maybe you're here today and you used to have hope for your marriage. Like you used to have this hope that you and your spouse, you would grow old together and you would share life together and you would share dreams together, and that you would not just occupy the same address, but that you would share life with each other. And for whatever reason, you attach your hope to your marriage thinking, okay, this person is going to take away my insecurities, and this person is going to take away my fears, and this person is going to take away my anxiety, and this person is going to make me complete. And if you've been married for longer than, 24 hours, you realize that no human being has the capacity to take away your insecurity. Maybe for a season, maybe for a moment, but if you place your hope in another person to solve soul-level issues for you, you're going to end up hopeless. You're going to start losing hope for that relationship. You know why? Because oftentimes we place God-sized hopes on human beings, and then we wonder why we're disappointed. And so maybe you're here today, and you realize that this is your life. This is a microcosm of how you live your life, bouncing from one hope to another. That, okay, I'm just going to put my hope in this relationship. I'm going to put my hope in my achievements. I'll put my hope in my financial security. I'm going to put my hope in my education. And you're constantly realizing that it's fleeting. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. And you go through this pattern, this cycle of feeling hopeful and feeling hopeless. Feeling hopeful and feeling disillusioned. Feeling hopeful and feeling disappointed. And so can I tell you, if that's where you are today, or if that's where you've ever been in your life, that you're not alone and you're not crazy. The closest followers to Jesus place their hope in an idea. They place their hope in something other than Jesus, and they ended up extremely disappointed. And so I want to pick up the story of the resurrection after the resurrection has happened. I want to talk to you about how we can experience not just hope in these things, and not just hope temporarily, but hope forever. Okay, so we're going to look at Luke chapter 24. This is a new little contraption we got here today. Try to walk through this passage together. We're going to make application as we go along. The verses are Luke 24, 13 through 21. And if you have an iPhone or a smartphone, you can download the Hope City app, and all the message notes are on there as well. You can follow along. We're going to read this and kind of make application as we go. So that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. So this is the same day as the resurrection. What has taken place is Mary and the other women have gone to the tomb. Jesus is not there. They have left the tomb. They have gone back to the disciples who are hiding. And they have told the other disciples, hey, Jesus is not there. The body is gone. There was an angel there that said he is resurrected. Okay, so now they're on the way to this village called Emmaus. Now, a lot of commentators believe that the reason that these disciples are walking to this village is because the dream is dead, right? The vision of Jesus being the Messiah is gone. Like they have lost all hope, and so why stay in Jerusalem? We're just going to probably make our way back home. We gave our life, we gave our time, we gave our attention, we gave our hope to this belief that Jesus was going to overthrow Israel, that he was going to make everything right, that he was going to free us from the Roman oppression, and now that dream died with Jesus. So why stay in Jerusalem? We're just going to walk back to Emmaus, which is a lot of commentators assume these disciples are from there. So they've left businesses, they've left families, they've left their own personal pursuits to follow Jesus for the last 3 years, and now in one afternoon, one morning, one crucifixion, it's dead with Jesus. And so the writer says, Luke says, it's 7 miles from from Jerusalem to Emmaus. And so if you calculate how long it would take to go 7 miles, average person could walk about 7 miles in 2 hours. Okay, so they have this 2-hour journey from Jerusalem to this village called Emmaus, and they're just talking about each other with everything that happened. There's kind of debriefing Friday night, Silent Saturday, and now this rumor, maybe this disillusionment, maybe these crazy women that thought they saw an angel, but there's been no body. Nobody has seen Jesus at this point. So there's no confirmation that he's even alive. And so they're just talking about it. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Another translation of this verse says, God kept them from recognizing him. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, either it's his resurrected state, maybe it was God in a supernatural way just preventing them from understanding that this was the resurrected Christ. But Jesus comes up, kind of walks beside them on the road and starts having a conversation with them, but they don't recognize who he is. Verse 17, he asked them, what are you guys talking about as you walk along? They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? In other words, have you been living under a rock for the last 3 days? In which Jesus would have said, well, kind of, right? I've been dead under a rock, right? Like, right? Like they're like, before Twitter, before Instagram, before Facebook, before texting, before any social media, before newspapers, they're like, you would have to have been dead not to know what's going on in Jerusalem, right? Like it's a huge topic of conversation. It was a public crucifixion, and now this scandalous resurrection that a small group of people are starting to believe. A small group of people are starting to talk about. They're like, Jesus, or dude, have you had no clue, right? So Jesus kind of catches on this, and he does not give them any idea. Next verse, he says, what things, he asked, all right? Like, he's just playing along with them. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. Now look at this next passage. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it's the third day since all this took place. That sentence, that first 4 words of that sentence, but we had hoped, summarizes everything the disciples are feeling in that moment. They had this great hope that Jesus was going to make everything right. 400 years of slavery in the Old Testament. 400 years of silence between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now Jesus comes on the scene and he's healing people and he's walking on water and he's performing miracles. And he's predicting that he is going to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. And you know what they did? They drank the Kool-Aid. They bought in. They sold out. They gave up everything. And their dream died on a cross in Jerusalem with Jesus. And so now they're talking to someone that they don't know to be Jesus about the death of Jesus and how they had hoped everything was going to be different. They had hope that their life, their ministry would look different. And my guess is you have said the same thing in your life. Maybe not in the same way, but you had hoped, right? We had hoped it wasn't going to be cancer. We had hoped she was going to be able to get pregnant. We had hoped our parents' marriage was going to make it. We had hoped our dad wasn't going to leave. We had hoped that person was going to be healed instead of pass away. We had hoped our financial situation wouldn't have led to bankruptcy. We had hoped that this job was going to be the job that we loved and we retired in, and now we can't stand it. We had hope that this relationship was going to turn a corner and be reconciled. We had hoped that this person was going to be the person that we married. We had hoped that our marriage was going to be healthier than it is right now. My guess is in your life, you have the exact same sentiment that the disciples had. Your life, your circumstances didn't turn out how you thought they would, how you prayed they would. In their minds, Jesus is still dead. There's no mention of a resurrection. All they say is he was crucified. They don't even mention the rumor of the resurrection to Jesus. And the scripture says they were downcast. They had their head down. They were depressed. They were hurting. And you would think Jesus, full of all compassion, love, mercy, grace, just died on their behalf, just took on all their sins, you'd have think his heart would have just gone out to them and said, fellas, it's me, right? Like, hey, don't be so depressed. Don't be so downcast. Look how Jesus responds. He said to them, how foolish are you? And how slow to believe that all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. And so they're walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. They have this 2-hour walk. And Jesus begins to go all the way back to the Old Testament and start connecting the dots from Moses all the way to himself on who he is and why he had to suffer and he had to die and he had to eventually come back from the dead in order for them to experience not just hope now, not just hope for Israel, not just hope of overcoming the Romans, but hope forever. And so he has this conversation with them for the next 2 hours. Jesus goes all the way back to the beginning. And then something amazing happens. They get to Emmaus. And I'm assuming they get to one of their houses or maybe a family's house or someplace that they're staying. And it's late in the day at this point. And so Jewish custom would have been to invite that person to stay with you, right? If you have a place to stay and there's somebody traveling through town, there's this big Jewish community that's bigger than just the typical family, and so you're going to invite that person to stay with you. They invite Jesus to stay with them, and he decides to do that. And so they continue on. When he was at the table with them, so they're having supper together, he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and began to give it to them. How amazing is this? And at that moment, their eyes were open and they recognized him. Could it have been because when he broke the bread, they saw the holes in his hands? But they go back to a memory, to an experience, to an event that took place 2 days before in the upper room. Right? They go back to this Last Supper that they had just experienced with Jesus, and for whatever reason, Jesus breaking the bread, whether it be that they saw the scars in his hands, whether it be the memory jar, where maybe God removed the veil, we don't know why, but their eyes were opened when Jesus broke the bread, and they're like, oh my gosh, that is Jesus. They recognized who he was. And I put this in your notes, that God often repeats circumstances that destroyed our hope and uses them to restore our hope. These guys were in the upper room and they were making all kinds of promises about following Jesus. You know what Jesus said? One of you is going to deny me. Peter's like, that'll never happen. Jesus said, one of you is going to betray me. Judas gets up and leaves. And so they've been able to connect the dots. Now, since Friday, since the crucifixion of Jesus, since the Last Supper, they have been in hiding. They have been hopeless. They have been scared. They have been fearful for their lives. And now they're in a room with Jesus again, with bread, with wine, and Jesus breaks bread and their eyes are open, and suddenly God uses the same thing that caused them to lose hope to restore hope. And maybe you've been there. Maybe you've had a relationship that crumbled and then God used another relationship to make that relationship feel like it was restored. Maybe God, you lost a job and you had a horrible experience with your boss, and God brought you a new boss and a new job, and you're like, oh, I see why that happened. And God used the same, it was different circumstances, but it was the same feelings to restore the hope that you once lost. And God uses this meal. Jesus uses this meal that had brought hopelessness to the disciples on Friday to bring hope back to these disciples on Sunday. And so here's what I know to be true about all of us. All of us put our hope in one of two places. You can put your hope in something, or you can put your hope in someone. And these disciples put their hope in something. It was masqueraded as Jesus, but really it was their agenda of what they wanted Jesus to do. Right? They put their hope in Jesus overthrowing Rome. They put their hope in Jesus restoring Israel back to prominence. They put their hope in Jesus allowing them to be free from Roman oppression. Yeah, if Jesus was the Messiah and could save them from their sins, that's a bonus, but what they really wanted was a military leader. What they really wanted was a conquering hero. What they really wanted was somebody who could come in and set everything right and allow them to live the life that they desired to live. And when Jesus did not fill that bill, they lost hope. And you and I have the same opportunity. We can put our hope in something. We are hoping that it turns out like we want it to. We hope that we get the job. We hope that we get the house. We hope we get the promotion. We hope we get the date. We hope that we get, the financial security, none of those things are bad. But when you attach all of your hope to those things, you know what all of those things have in common? They're all going away. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the death rate is still 1 for 1. Everyone dies, right? And you can't take your career with you. You can't take your financial security with you. You can't take your promotions with you. You can't take your love life with you. Like anytime you attach your hope to something, it has a temporary shelf life. It could be 20 years, it could be 2 months. But there's another way to do life. There's another way to experience not just hope now, but hope forever. And that's placing your hope in someone. You can place your hope in someone that took on your sin, that made you right with God, that paved a way for you to have a relationship with God, that conquered death and the grave and gives you hope, not just for living with God for all of eternity, but hope for experiencing God's presence in your life right now. The word hope appears in the New Testament 71 times. It appears 1 time before the resurrection, 70 times after the resurrection. There was this birth of hope that resurrected with the resurrected Christ. And here's how the disciples finish up. This is what they say. They say, they asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? Like, how did we miss it? How did we not know that was Jesus? And so with the time that I have left, I just want to give you 3 things that the hope of Christ brings you in your life. And the first I would share with you is this, that Jesus gives us hope of a new identity. Look at 1 Peter 1:3. It says, "Praise be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus from the dead." I want you to notice new birth, living hope, new birth. Something new, not something improved, not something that was passed down. It's brand new. I got an email from somebody at Hope City this week, and they were just sharing with me how for most of their adult life, they have felt like God was against them. God was disappointed in them. That they made God angry. That they were like a child that had been put on timeout by God. And they just listed experience after experience, some with the church, some with their parents, some with with other people in their life that have just made them feel like they were damaged goods and that God would not really care about them. I met with somebody here at Hope City this week, and they just went on and on about every mistake that they had made and every bad decision that they had made, every financial blunder that they had committed, every legal issue that they had had, every relationship failure that they had had. And what they had assumed about themselves is, because I failed, I am a failure. And what the resurrection of Christ gives you is a new identity, that you are not your failures, that you are not your mistakes. When God looks at you, he does not see your past, he sees your potential because of the resurrection of Jesus. When God looks at you, he does not see your mistakes, he sees your opportunity to use your mistakes as a ministry to others. When God looks at you, he does not see your shame. He sees you as a son or daughter of the King. That's who he sees you. Why? Because when he looks at you, he does not see you. He sees the resurrected Jesus. I shared with you guys this detail about our adoption. We adopted our kids. It'll be 2 years ago in June. And part of the adoption process is you have to apply for new birth certificates. And so that's a process, it takes 6 or 8 weeks. So we go through the whole thing, we get the new birth certificates. And one of the things that was so astonishing to me about the birth certificates of our adopted kids is it says, child of Justin, Blair Davis, and Trisha Ann Davis, birthplace Indiana, birthplace Illinois, that's our birthplaces. It reads exactly like my biological kid's birth certificate. There's nothing different. I was blown away by that. I'm like, we were not in the delivery room, but these things basically look like we were. Trish did not give birth to these kids, but these things kind of make it look like she did, right? Like they're the exact same. There's no difference between these birth certificates of our adopted kids and the birth certificates of our biological kids. Well, part of the process of going through adoption is you get new birth certificates, and you use these birth certificates to get new Social Security numbers or new Social Security cards. So I go to the Social Security office, and I tell them, hey, we got these birth certificates, we need new Social Security cards. And she said, you don't need new cards. They get new numbers. Their old number is completely destroyed. It's obliterated. It's gone. They get a brand new, so it's like they're in witness protection, all right? Like they get brand new identities. Like their old Social Security number, gone. Brand new Social Security numbers with their adopted name. There's zero evidence that, other than them being black, me being white, okay? There's zero evidence that they're not my kids. At least from the state of Indiana's standpoint, all right? Complete new identity. And can I just say, you weren't at the crucifixion, but Jesus took on your sin anyway. And you weren't at the resurrection, but Jesus gave you new life with the resurrection. There, you have a new life. You have a new identity. Not some improved version of your old life. And some of you are so hopeless because you keep trying to make the old things improved. And Jesus says, I want to make them new. I want to give you a new identity. Secondly, the hope of Jesus gives us a new way of thinking. Look at Romans 12:2. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. One of the biggest challenges that we've had with our adopted kids is our biological kids grew up with our values, and they act out of those values sometimes. They behave outside of those values. They break curfew. They lie. They do something they're not supposed to do. But it's not a value, it's a behavior. You follow me? Our adopted kids, when we got them, they were 8 and 10. Their value system was pretty much set. Their formative years were pretty much over. And so when we adopted them, they don't have our values. They're trying to behave their way into our values. And it's presented all kinds of challenges. Because they're trying to act like our other kids act. But their hearts are not like our other kids. They have been given a different value system. They've grown up in a different culture. And so it's presented this swimming upstream type of effect when it comes to their behavior. And so one of the things that we try to value as a family is when it comes to school, we don't focus on grades, we focus on effort. You need to do your best. If your best is a C+, that's awesome. If your best is an A+, that's great. And so that's been a value of ours because we believe that God has a purpose and a plan for our kids regardless of their grades. God wants to see their effort. He doesn't necessarily care about the merits that they get. And so that's kind of what we've been trying to teach and trying to model and trying to show. And when Jalen came to live with, the kids came to live with us, they had zero vision for their future. They had no vision for even going to college. So they came to live with us. We took Micah to college. We took Elijah to college. That was just a foreign concept to them. A couple nights ago, we were sitting at dinner, and Isaiah was talking about our freshman in high school. He was talking about how, because of the age difference in all the kids, he will never attend school with another sibling. My older two boys went to middle school 1 year together. They went to high school 2 years together. They were in college together. Well, Isaiah, because of his age, he will not be in school with any of them. And Jalen said, Isaiah, if you get recruited for basketball, and you redshirt, which I just love that he even knew what that meant, all right? I'm like, we're making progress with these kids, all right? He's like, and you redshirt at your college, I could go to college with you. And you know what it was? It's like this moment of transformed thinking. For the first time I heard him articulate, he saw himself at college. For the first time. And he wasn't trying to change his behavior, he was changing the way he thought. And God doesn't want your behavior modification. He doesn't want you to try to behave your way into his value system. He wants to transform your heart. He wants to change you from the inside out. And it starts when you stop thinking about your old life and you start allowing him into the new life and the new identity and allowing him to change the way that you think. Your behavior will follow your thinking. And for the church, for years, centuries, we have said your thinking will follow your behavior. And you know what we've created? Hypocrites, people that are one way on Sunday and everything else through the week. We've created people who are disillusioned with the church because they can never live up to a standard. We've created people who have this adversarial relationship with God because they think they could never behave enough to please him. And God's saying, hey, I don't need you to clean up to come to me. I'll clean you up after you come to me. I'll transform your thinking. I'll transform your heart and your mind. And finally, Jesus gives us hope forever. Jesus gives us hope forever. 2 weeks ago, a lady in our church, her name's Carrie Hendricks, and I'm not sharing anything that she hasn't shared on her Caring Bridge site, but she was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, a few months ago. 2 weeks ago, she had a double mastectomy. And Here's how great of a pastor I am. I told her I would come and pray with her. I overslept and showed up after she had gone back. So anyway, we're still working through counseling with that. But anyway, we get to the hospital after she had come out of surgery, and she was just in great spirit. She had done great. And during the surgery, this 5-hour surgery to remove all the cancer, she had her lymph nodes biopsied. And on Tuesday, she got the results of those, and there's cancer in her lymph nodes. Carrie has been a part of Hope City since our very first info meeting at our house in August of 2015. Not only has she been a part of that, when I was a youth pastor in 1998, she was a sophomore in high school in my youth group. She was in Trisha's small group. Not only was she a part of our youth ministry in 2000, I drove down to Methodist Hospital and I prayed with her dad before his prostate cancer surgery. 5 years ago, I drove up from Nashville to Kokomo and I did her mom's funeral after she died of cancer. So you talk about a gut punch. You talk about hopelessness. You talk about feeling unfair. You talk about feeling like God did not get it right. You talk about being disillusioned. You talk about being downcast. You talk about losing hope. You talk about God not coming through. She has every right to think those things, to feel that way. There's a passage of scripture in Revelation that says this: look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and he'll be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. This is a passage I read at her mom's funeral. And her prognosis is good. Her spirits are up. She has hope now. But she also has hope forever. You know why? Because she's not attaching her hope to a doctor's ability to remove cancer. She's not attaching her hope to a medication's ability to kill her cancer. She is choosing to do her very best to attach her hope to a God who says, hey, you have hope now, but more importantly, you have hope forever. You have hope for eternity. And so I just want to ask you today, where are you placing your hope? Are you placing your hope in the things that you know are going to bring you instant gratification, but long-term hopelessness? Or are you placing your hope in a Savior that may not come through in a way that you think he should, but always comes through in a way that brings hope, not just now, but forever? And here's the deal. No one can answer that question for you. You have to analyze and you have to do an inventory of where you're attaching your hope. Is it to something or is it to someone? Let's pray together.